benefits of Motherwort. I'm going to go into the benefits of chamomile. I have my setup, just make sure I had everything. So I always use a scale when I am making herbal blends. It doesn't matter if it's a tea blend, a tincture blend, a capsule blend. I always measure my herbs. I like to know the grams that I'm using, as well as the milliliters that I'm using of any solvent. So solvent, menstruum, that could be alcohol. I'm using brandy today. It could be, sometimes if you're making a liniment, it could be rubbing alcohol. Your solvent is also water. Your solvent is also honey. So any liquid that you're using to extract the constituents of the plant out of the plant, that's called your solvent. That's called your menstruum, was an older term. And so the measurement method that I'm using for today's tinctures is the weight to volume method. This is slightly different from folk method tinctures. And it's one of the things that I love about herbal medicine, in that you can be super simple and flexible and easygoing with it. And you can also be super precise and scientific, and both will make excellent medicine. It's a really accessible medicine, but I'll talk through what the weight to volume method is as I am doing it. But I have my scale. I have a canning funnel that just helps to get the herb into the jars. I have my jars. I have my scoop, little stirrer, kind of like a tray area. I've already sanitized this area, washed my hands and all that stuff. And I have a bowl. So the first herb that I'm going to make a tincture out of is chamomile. And the ratios that we need for our blend are 1 to 10. And so this is where that weight to volume method comes into play. So that means 1 part chamomile to 10 parts menstruum by milliliters. So it's gram to milliliters, and that gets you more precise dosing. So let's start with the scale. And chamomile is amazing. It is super underrated. These little beautiful, delicate flowers. Let's say anything that you have going on with your digestive system, you want to turn to chamomile as one of your first choices. It's anti-inflammatory. It has all of these volatile oils in it. Those are the essential oils. Another way of saying that, some of the terpenes are volatile oils. But those like aromatic constituents that we have in plants, to some degree, all of them have antimicrobial support. The degree really depends on the plant that we're working with, but you can know that constituent group. If it's hugely fragrant, you're going to get some antimicrobial support. And chamomile is very, very fragrant. Chamomile is a bitter, and we are deficient in them as a society. And bitters really help our digestive system, from salivation all the way to elimination. And then think about intestinal infections and having those aromatic compounds within the digestive system, supporting the gut microbiome and the immune system, which is where a large part of your immune system resides, in your gut. And those antimicrobial compounds helping to clear infections and helping to support gut health. Bitters do that too. Bitters, antimicrobial herbs that have an affinity for the digestive system. Chamomile can be emetic. Who knows what emetic means? Some of our herbal terms, emetic means that it can induce vomiting, but I found that that particular action is really dose dependent. 1 teaspoon of chamomile in 8 ounces of hot water, steeped, which is our standard tea preparation, that's not going to make you throw up. But if you increase that, it might send you to the toilet. So chamomile can help with both diarrhea and with constipation. But the way in which it does that, depending on what you need, like sometimes we do need that strong, get it out action. And then sometimes we also need that astringency, which is what helps with like diarrhea. People can use chamomile as a tonic, meaning it is safe and mild and gentle enough to use every day in proper doses. It's alterative. That's an old term. Doesn't really have an equivalent In modern care, like in modern medicine, it broadly means to keep the channels of elimination open. And those are the skin, the kidneys, the liver, helping to detoxify the bowels. It's really relaxant and excellent for your nervous system. And that's also a part of the bitter action. So anytime you see bitters, we know bitters are helping with digestive function. They're helping with gut microbiome diversity, or just gut microbiome balance. And they're helping with our nervous systems. Bitters help to stimulate parasympathetic nervous system state. That's our rest and digest. We really can't do anything. We can't heal well if we're still tense, if we're still in a sympathetic nervous system response, if we're still unable to feel safe. And so bitters really help that by way of also helping with vagal tone, the vagus nerve. Look up polyvagal theory. It's really interesting. It's another framework for understanding the nervous system and it being more dynamic than just you're in rest and digest or fight or flight. That vagus nerve is one of our cranial nerves, and it innervates a lot of our organs, including our stomach, our heart. And so when we're in that stuck state, a lot of things just malfunction. So again, our ratio here for this particular process is a 1 to 10. That means I'm using 100 grams of chamomile and multiply that by 10, and that's 1,000 milliliters of our solvent. So when we do the weight to volume method, as opposed to the folk method, we get a little bit more precise with our doses. But don't confuse that. When you see tincture bottles and they say 1 to 4, 1 to 5, that process is a little bit different because of the equipment that these large industrial herbal companies have. I have not been able to get either folk method or weight to volume method, or even, see, percolation, you could do it. Percolation method tinctures, you can go on our YouTube video and watch a whole tutorial on percolation method tinctures. I could get to a 1 to 4 or a 1 to 5. Well, using that method, I can't get to that with folk method or weight to volume method, and you'll kind of see why in a little bit. Folk method would be different, like just because that's volume to volume, and so that's different. But sign up for the next tinctures class and more of these nuances get explained. You can make herbal medicine really loose and simply, or you can be super duper precise, and it all turns out to be good, effective, great medicine. Chamomile is really great for children and it helps to stop the tantrums, like for real. If you have little ones, and it's not even little ones, because it's adults too. We tantrum as well, but those emotional releases that we need, you actually don't want to pick a beaker up when you're looking at volume. You want to look down and look at the line to make sure it's there. I remember giving chamomile to Niles, he is now 9, when he was a baby. Just a little tincture on the tongue, and it just brings in the peace. It really does, brings in the peace. I actually did that the other day. Gave him some chamomile because he was feeling upset about school, and we diluted a tincture in some water, and within 10, 20 minutes, he just felt back to himself. Chamomile helps that connection between gut and brain. For the people who feel anxious, and it resides down here, the nervous in the belly. Yes, I remember you saying this. I used it on my 2-year-old niece. It works. I love that. I love that. It works so, so well. This is the solvent. We're using brandy. It tastes pretty good. I like the combination with the aromatics and brandy. What else is chamomile good for? It works on the liver. That's another thing to know about bitters. If you really understand bitters, you understand many of the other actions of the plant. Nervous system, relaxant and nervous system support on a spectrum where it can be stimulating, it can be sedative, it can be hypnotic, which in herbal world, that means helping one sleep. So you can really get this nice spectrum of how relaxing and calming an herb can be in your body. But again, that is dose dependent. I have known people who've been in very tense and high stress states, and 1 cup of chamomile tea knocks them out, like full 8 hours of sleep, which is exactly what they needed. And so that's why we start low and go slow. So if I were making this folk method, there would be a difference. And the difference would be that I would fill this jar, it's not as precise, but I would fill this jar 1/4 of the way with herb. I'll use a blank one as a demo. So if I were doing this folk method, I would have filled it about 1/4 of the way with chamomile and then just topped it off with brandy. I am doing weight to volume. I want a more precise measurement. And one of the differences, it's like if you were to actually weigh the amount of herb, I just use 100 grams of herb. But because chamomile is so fluffy and so light and there's so much space and air in between, this would not be 100 grams of herb. It's like volume to volume is what the folk method is, and weight to volume is what the weight to volume method is. So weight to volume in comparison to volume, which is the folk method, it ends up being a more concentrated tincture. So I am not topping this off. I'm going to see how much it swells. So the plant's going to rehydrate, and I'm going to see where my volume ends up being. And I'll continue shaking. We hear that about tinctures. That's agitation helps with extraction. So when you hear, oh, you need to shake your tinctures, what you're doing is agitating it so that it increases the kinetic energy. And as you increase the kinetic energy through agitation, that helps all of the molecules inside the herb, inside the solvent, collide and extract out. So more agitation, more kinetic energy, you actually have a superior extraction. But you can test this at home yourself. And if you were to make small amounts, make 1 tincture, same plant, same menstruum, 1 tincture, do it with agitation every day for about 6 weeks. The other tincture, don't. At the end, try them. You'll really be able to taste the difference. I'm breaking rules based on how most people learn herbal medicine, like from the internet, make a full tincture, all that stuff. But I know the science behind what I'm doing that allows me to break the rules and know this is a great tincture. So that's one. Here's our label. Already has all the stuff on it, except I'm going to cross out this batch number. One of the things that we have to do as a business is really keep track of the lots and the batch numbers of your medicine, your solvent, your herb. And this is unique to your business and like your own tracking system. Tammy's brilliant mind created this, but like you'll always see these numbers on our jars, and that relates to the lot number and the batch number of this chamomile. So like say there's a recall. How do companies know which customers received something that was potentially contaminated? This actually happened several years ago. There was an elderberry recall. And so when that happens, you're supposed to notify your customers. If you have done correct tracking, you will know who purchased your plant or your tincture or whatever in a certain amount of time and in that time period, and you would notify them and tell them to discard it. We didn't have any of that elderberry that was being recalled, that was open and out, but we did have some and we had to do that. What else about chamomile? Anxiety, sleep disturbances, any digestive complaints, start with chamomile. It's really great for acid reflux and really interesting about acid reflux too, because chamomile has like a downward action. It helps the liver. Something that people should know about acid reflux, like when they come into the shop, we have a shop in Decatur if you're in the Atlanta area, and they say they have digestive issues, they have gut issues, I always have to ask that follow-up question of like, tell me what kind of digestive issues. And as soon as someone says that it's acid reflux, then that eliminates peppermint. It's like, you have to know that. Peppermint makes people's acid reflux worse, and that tends to make chamomile a first choice over peppermint. But there's a lot of analogs in herbal medicine. There's so many constituents that there's a lot of overlap when you understand them, but there's nuances to know what's more appropriate for one person, not appropriate for another person. Chamomile is also an emmenagogue, so it helps promote menstrual flow. It helps with dysmenorrhea or cramps. It's a mild pain reliever, helps with blood clots, hot flashes, so much. Bloating, anything digestive related is where you start. But that's chamomile. Now we're gonna do motherwort. And our motherwort tincture is a little different. It's gonna be a 1 to 8, not a 1 to 10, using the weight to volume method. This is motherwort, really beautiful plant, really great ally for the reproductive years, the transitions between reproductive years and non-reproductive years. Also strongly bitter, so helping with all of the things that bitters help with that we were just talking about. Relaxing, helpful for the heart. A lot of people include motherwort in their hyperthyroid formulas and blends. And I don't think it has direct action on the thyroid. I think it's because it helps with all of the nervous system hyperactivity that happens with hyperthyroid. It's very calming. You can include it in menstrual blends. You can include it in menopause, perimenopause blends, all the transitions. After labor and delivery, helping with that uterus heart connection, restoring that, good for postpartum, depression. It's diuretic, so helping to support the kidneys, aid digestion, aid the nervous system, and also thereby helping with mood. A lot of your neurotransmitters are synthesized in your gut. Anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD. It's hard to turn those things around without gut support. When in doubt, start with your gut health. Inside of Family Farmacy, one of the 2 programs where we offer live classes, we do monthly live classes. And inside of Herbal Medicine for the Soul, our mentorship program, we do 3 classes a month. So if you want to learn about those 2 programs, head to iwillaremedy.com to learn about them. They both include live interactions. I want to set people up for success. And I know there's a lot of nuances when it comes to herbal medicine. And there's a lot to pull together and to synthesize, because it's not just learning plants. You really have to understand the body. You really have to understand yourself. You also really have to understand modern care, because most people use a hybrid. So we do a lot of that in both programs. Herbal Medicine for the Soul is significantly more comprehensive, going into chronic imbalances and lab work, so you understand your own labs, and business mentorship, really supporting people in becoming practitioners and becoming proficient herbalists. A lot of people, sadly, who come into my program after being not supported as well through somebody else's program and feeling like they're still not equipped to help people. So that's another reason why we do regular live classes, and it's ongoing, lifetime access. There's no way that you can get all of it. Like, that's not really the goal or possible. You never get all of it. You can't put a deadline on synthesis and integration of information. So I'd rather people take 5 years to go through it and really understand it than to try to cram as much as you can in 12 weeks or even a year. And then all of the classes, I can only keep track of the foundational curriculum, but so long as people keep track of all of the case studies that we do, the clinical work that we do in the program, all of that counts towards your continuing education and the hours that you need if you want to be a registered herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild. And there's opportunities for students to teach. People do case studies inside of the program too. Like, I have someone who's gonna do our Hashimoto's case study, who's a graduate of the program. This is definitely the work of a lifetime. You're never done, and that's good. That's what makes it fun. There's always so much to learn and to integrate. Back to folk method. If this was a folk method tincture, I would have only filled up the jar to right about here. But you see where it is. So it's just more concentrated. And then when you think about grams to milliliters and you do the math, by using the weight to volume method, you can know based on the milliliters how many grams someone is consuming of the medicine. It helps you with more precise dosing. A dropper full of a folk method tincture is not the same in terms of grams of the medicine. It's not the same if you were doing a weight to volume tincture, because that's volume to volume and this is weight to volume. So it really does help you to make more precise measurement if you want to be that precise at home. Like even still at home, if this was for our own use, I do a mixture of both. Sometimes I'll do weight to volume, sometimes I'll do volume to volume or folk method. All right, this is 1 to 8. I need 1,200 milliliters. Any questions? Oh, about being a registered herbalist, the American Herbalist Guild. So that is the professional organization in the United States for herbalists. Because we live in the gray, not a federally licensed modality or licensed medical practitioner. So herbalists, we live in the gray. It's okay. Although, you know, I was reading an article about something that the FDA initiated in 2023 is basically this analysis of different substances, herbs included, that they are putting into 3 different lists. Many of the herbs that we use are going into the category of not being allowed to be compounded, or prescribed is not a word we use in herbal medicine, but or prescribed or given or made into medicine by non-medical professionals. That's like, you can't use Motherwort at home. You can't use alfalfa at home. You can't use nettle at home, or nor as an herbalist, nor as a naturopathic doctor, because their licensing isn't across the board. So I want to keep reading about it because, you know, governmental language is not as easy to understand. But another herbalist was writing about it, and at the end of probably her like 2-page article around some of the history of just like the suppression of herbal medicine and of natural modalities that's really been happening since the inception of the American Medical Association, the Flexner Report, how our medical systems got into this very strict and rigid and uniform medical school curriculum. That's really been happening since the late 1800s. And so this is just a continuation of that thread and of our modern systems working the way that they were always intended to work. If that actually happens, the end of her pastors was learn herbal medicine while you still have the opportunity to. And I was like, dang, I agree with that. You know how much that would change care? It's already really, really, really bad in the United States. I firmly believe that herbal medicine and herbs fill a really important gap in healthcare. I feel so blessed to just be one of the people who decided this assignment in this lifetime. It's such a gift and a blessing to know this work, and I'm with her. Learn it while you can. It won't go away because plants outnumber people, but thinking about how much more difficult systems will make it for us to learn this and to be able to utilize it freely. I don't put it past people to do that. So learn it formally while you can. Once you know the foundations, you can live on any part of the planet and survive. So learn herbal medicine. It's such a valuable skill. Niles got a big gash on his knee. He was getting into the car and we thought it was a plastic, like acrylic insert that goes in like a picture frame. Like he was just gonna use that to draw on. But when he got into the car, it ended up being glass. When he got into the car, he jammed the corner into his knee. So a lot of flesh came up, lots of blood. Had to like snip the flap of skin off. It was a whole thing. But kids are rough. So of course, playground, school, recess, the cut was still getting irritated and opening, closing, we didn't necessarily know. But about 4 or 5 days ago, we were noticing that it was raised. And when I would touch it, it was tender to the touch. So it was like, like, is this a keloid forming, or is some bacteria trapped in there? And it was pink, but it was like, all right, just keep monitoring it. And then yesterday, when he got in bed, he was like, oh, this, like, it was really hurting. And now it was puffy. It was like puffy and raised. And you could, when you press down, you could feel fluid inside. And I was like, we have to reopen that because bacteria is trapped. I have some sharp tools at home and we sanitize all of those things. Talk about when you need chamomile. He's freaking out and we're trying to calm him down. We numb him with some ice, disinfect all of the things. And I would not say we sufficiently got him calm. He was big mad about how much trying to numb it with the ice. He was so mad at us. And I was like, it would hurt a lot more if we didn't. And just poked several holes in it and the blood started coming out. And it's like, oh, okay. So this is one small example of really feeling empowered to take care of yourself at home and to have those first aid skills, to be able to do that, have the right equipment, do your own minor surgery. Those are kind of things that would have easily sent someone to the hospital. No, we're not doing that. I'm not waiting 8 hours for them to do the same thing that I did and then send me a bill for 10 grand. All right, so we have a problem, folks. And this happens. So I did 1 to 8 and we're not covering. I'm okay right at the line. And I know that this is gonna swell more and that's okay. It's always different working with plants because the growing conditions are different, the harvesting conditions are different, the drying conditions are different. So how much moisture a plant is going to absorb when it reconstitutes, that always is different too. But with weight to volume method, I can make an adjustment and say, all right, I need more. I can't leave that uncovered. With the chamomile, there's liquid volume on the bottom. I know that I keep shaking that. That's still gonna make a really good extraction. That's not gonna work. So I'm gonna add another 300 milliliters and that will get me at a 1 to 10. And as long as you keep track, it's fine. That's better. All right, that's way better. And then I'll check it tomorrow. So like if it's swelled a lot and there's still plant material that's not able to be in the solvent and extracting, then I'll add more and I can just keep track. Yeah, that's nice. But do you see? So now that we have one that has like a full jar, do you see how much plant material I used in comparison to if it was folk method? This was like filled up like 3/4 of the way with plants, right? It's way more concentrated. Even though the ratio, the way that I'm making it is we're now at a 1 to 10. It's still way more concentrated than the folk method. When you see the big herbal companies, they have ultrasonic extractors. They have so many different methods, which I do want to play with. Ultrasonic extraction is really interesting. But they have different methods to be able to keep that ratio in a 1 to 4. So it's totally different. Let me write my label. And no big company is waiting 6 weeks. You don't have to. So when you know the science behind it, you know to increase surface area, you know to increase agitation, you have like, polarity. These are all some of the things that we talked about in the tinctures workshop that help you make tinctures faster, but I'm not in a rush for these, so I'm okay. Looking at our Motherwort, helps with anxiety, nervous system restlessness, insomnia, bitter, cardiotonic, antispasmodic, really helping with those transitions in our reproductive years, and a emmenagogue, diuretic, diaphoretic, helps to break fevers, cool the body. Another one that just lifts the melancholy, supportive in your anxiety, depression, grief blends. Helpful in combination with some heart chakra herbs like hawthorn and even linden for mother wound. And that could be a relationship with your own mother figures or you as a mother figure, bringing out some of those nurturing qualities in people. A weak heart emotionally and physically. Look up broken heart syndrome. That's really fascinating. Induces labor, but you want to know what you're doing. With herbs with pregnancy and herbs with labor and delivery, you want to know what you're doing. You want to have experience. Lots about Motherwort. In terms of programs, we're always doing family pharmacy and we're always doing herbal medicine for the soul. Those are just the 2 biggest ongoing programs that we do. And then in terms of one-off classes, those probably won't return until the summer. Kind of we're realizing what's the season for those classes. And the reason for that, well, first of all, teaching is always ongoing inside of Herbal Medicine for the Soul and Family Pharmacy, because there's regular classes that I teach for them. And I do consultations, and we have like our Decatur shop. So there's a lot of different facets to our business that makes our schedule kind of fluctuate. But the things that are most regular are Family Pharmacy and Herbal Medicine for the Soul. One-off classes either here or in our Decatur space or hybrid. Those will return in the summer. I teach at Spelman College, an introduction to African American herbalism at Spelman in the spring semester. So if I were to try to do all the things all the time, which is kind of what we did, I end up working 7 days a week, and I obviously can't function. So the one-off classes will come back in the summer. We really try to encourage people to get into Family Pharmacy or Herbal Medicine for the Soul, because you'll get the most robust, comprehensive experience. And you'll learn so much about the foundations. When you have those foundations, you'll know how to support yourself through anything. Versus it's nice to do a one-off class. It's really focused, like the Herbs for PCOS class or the Pain-Free Periods class. And those are helpful because it really focuses the work and what you need. But you get that inside of our programs, and you also really get the foundation to be able to do that yourself, so that if somebody in your family has asthma, you know the methodology, you know the process for being able to pull together a protocol to support them. What herbs should those be and why, and explain it. That's why we really focus on supporting people inside of our programs the most. And then I also do private consultations. So right now I'm in endometrius world with consultations. So check those out on our website. Sign up for the mailing list. I send out little love letters to our mailing list. And I'm trying to make sure I have everything on the label that we need to put into the system. So you need the date, you need the batch number that you create, like this gets a batch number as a finished product. You need the method that you made it. So it's either maceration, which is soaking method. So it could be maceration, folk method, it could be maceration, weight to volume, it could be blender method, or it could be percolation. So you have to keep track of that. Obviously what it is, and then the batch of the herb and the batch of the solvent and the date you made it. I'm making sure that I have everything on the label, so when we put it in the system, it's all there. So in the system, we use a Salesforce database. Tammy's got an IT background. So these batch numbers, if I'm saying I need the batch number of chamomile in our system, this batch number tells us the lot number from whom we purchased it, whether that was a farmer or bulk herb supplier, and the date. So you have to be able to trace it back. So if they send out an email and say, hey, this is contaminated, we go into our system, look it up, we know it's like, okay, it came from here. We know that that chamomile was in this recipe. We know that we were selling rest tinctures. This is part of a formula. Rest tinctures in this particular batch number. In this time, we're going to send you an email and tell you to throw it away. Basically, that's how that works. So even when we formulate, this is just 2 of the plants that are in our rest formula. I think it's 5. So you take all of those tinctures. This is why another reason why you tincture your plants separately, whether you want to do that at home or you want to do it for business anyway, tincture them separately. So let's say all 5 of those tinctures are now going into another finished product. We have to know the batch number of this, of all 5 of those too. So it's really interesting. Yes, Motherwort's a great ally for you for menopause. It also goes into our cool capsules, which are amazing. Tammy's actually taking them. And it's funny because she said the other day, she forgot to take them like one night and one morning. And then that day, she started having a hot flash. And then she remembered she hadn't taken it in about a day. Took it. It's like, So our cool capsules on our website are designed for this wonderful transition that I'm now in the generation of approaching. I'm 42.